Liars avoid eye contact. You have heard this your entire life. Your parents said it, teachers repeated it. Every crime show, every movie, every pop psychology article has drilled this into your head. Look someone in the eye, and you can tell if they are honest. There is one problem. It is completely wrong. A survey across 75 countries found that 64% of people believe liars avoid eye contact. It is humanity's #1 deception myth. And when researchers actually tested it, analyzing over 1,300 estimates across 120 studies, they found no relationship between eye contact and lying. None. In fact, liars often make more eye contact than truth tellers. They want to appear trustworthy. They want to see if you are buying it. That steady gaze you trust? It proves nothing. Welcome to Read Anyone, where psychology, deception, and human behavior collide, and people are never quite what they seem. Over the next 12 minutes, I'm going to dismantle the eye contact myth with the actual science. You will learn why this belief persists, despite decades of evidence against it. You will see the case studies of master deceivers who weaponized eye contact to steal billions. And most importantly, you will discover what FBI behavioral analysts actually watch for, the signals that separate professional detection from coin flip guessing. But first, you need to understand a number that should terrify you. 54%. That is the accuracy rate humans achieve at detecting lies. Bond and DiPaolo's 2006 meta-analysis synthesized 206 studies and over 24,000 judges. The result was barely better than flipping a coin. Here's where it gets worse. Professional lie catchers, police officers, customs officials, even judges, they perform no better than civilians. Accuracy rates hover between 44 and 60% across the board. The only exception Paul Ekman ever found was U.S. Secret Service agents, and even their advantage was modest. Training in traditional behavioral cues often increases confidence without improving accuracy. Investigators become more certain they can spot lies while getting no better at actually doing it. That combination has destroyed innocent lives. When researchers trained observers in the behavioral indicators taught to police, including gaze aversion, those observers performed worse than untrained control groups. Learning the wrong cues actively degrades your ability to detect deception. This is what professionals know that most people do not. The problem is not that you cannot read people. The problem is that you have been taught to look for the wrong signals. The largest study of deception cues in history was Bella DiPaolo's 2003 meta-analysis in Psychological Bulletin. Her team examined over 1,300 estimates of 158 behavioral cues across 120 independent studies. The finding was decisive. Truth tellers and lie tellers display similar gaze behavior patterns. The median effect size across all cues was essentially negligible. Eye contact showed no meaningful relationship with deception. Sporer and Schwant's 2007 meta-analysis reached the identical conclusion. By 2023, when researchers surveyed 50 active deception scientists, the single issue on which more than 80% agreed was that gaze aversion is not diagnostic of lying. It was the only point achieving such strong consensus. And here's the counterintuitive part. Samantha Mann and Aldert Vrij studied 338 airport passengers in 2012. Their finding was liars displayed more deliberate eye contact than truth tellers. Not less, more. The explanation is simple. Liars want to appear convincing. They want to monitor whether you're believing them. The very behavior people associate with honesty, that steady, unwavering gaze, can signal the exact opposite. Once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. Consider Elizabeth Holmes. She built Theranos into a $9 billion fraud. Journalist John Carreyrou described her gaze as near hypnotic. The way she trained her big blue eyes on you without blinking made you feel like the center of the world. Employees reportedly received guidance to look away if she fixed them with her eyes. Body language expert Dr. Jack Brown observed that her continuous wide-eyed stare actually showed a very high correlation with deception and antisocial personality disorder. The intensity that radiated confidence? It concealed a company built on technology that did not exist. Bernie Madoff ran the largest Ponzi scheme in history, $65 billion, for decades. One investor recalled, "Doubt Bernie Madoff? Doubt Bernie? No, you doubt God. You can doubt God, but you do not doubt Bernie." Madoff looked his investors in the eye with a smile, shook their hands, and never showed any indication that he was robbing them blind. His warm eye contact and confident demeanor fooled not only individual investors, but SEC regulators who investigated and cleared him multiple times. Ted Bundy murdered at least 30 women. He exploited charm and eye contact to approach his victims. Dr. Catherine Ramsland explained that you could look at Ted Bundy straight in the face, even with full knowledge of what he had done, and not see a single sign of his guilt. A Mormon missionary who baptized him later reflected, "I would not hesitate to line him up with my sister. The signals were not in their eyes. The signals were somewhere else entirely." So what do FBI behavioral analysts actually watch for? Joe Navarro spent 25 years with the Bureau and founded their behavioral analysis program. He is unequivocal. There is no single behavior indicative of deception, not one. This principle underpins modern FBI training. Eye contact is explicitly rejected as a reliable cue. What replaced it is fundamentally different. The baseline method forms the foundation of professional interrogation. Rather than looking for universal tells, trained investigators spend initial interview time establishing how a subject normally behaves, their typical eye contact patterns, speech rhythms, gestures, mannerisms. Only deviations from this established baseline carry meaning. A person who naturally avoids eye contact? Avoiding eye contact tells you nothing. A person who normally maintains strong eye contact suddenly looking away during a specific question? That is information worth investigating. The signal is in the cluster, not the single tell. Cluster analysis represents the second key principle. Single behaviors mean nothing. Only constellations of multiple indicators carry predictive weight. Hartwig and Bond's 2014 meta-analysis found that analyzing nonverbal behavior, clusters across multiple channels, achieved approximately 68% accuracy, substantially better than the 54% from single cue judgments. One signal tells you nothing. 3 signals appearing together at the same moment? That cluster tells you where to dig. The cognitive load approach has emerged as the most promising detection method. Rather than passively observing behaviors, investigators actively impose mental burden. Ask subjects to recall events in reverse chronological order, pose unexpected questions about peripheral details, request more information about seemingly minor points. Because liars already operate under higher cognitive load, simultaneously suppressing truth, fabricating narrative, and monitoring believability, these interventions amplify the differences between truth-tellers and deceivers more reliably than behavioral observation alone. Now, let me show you the 4 signals that actually work. Signal 1 is linguistic distancing. When lying, people unconsciously reduce first-person pronouns. They use fewer instances of I, me, and my. They increase third-person references. They construct shorter, simpler narratives. This psychological distancing reflects discomfort with owning false statements. The classic example is Clinton's statement, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." The demonstrative that creates distance from the claim, "Not this woman, not her name, that woman." Newman and colleagues achieved 67% accuracy through computer-based text analysis of linguistic patterns. That exceeds both untrained human judges and chance. When someone shifts from "my wife" to "that woman," from "our house" to "the house," from "I did" to "it was done," pay attention. Distance in language often reflects distance from truth. Signal 2 is speech timing deviation. Lying is cognitively expensive. The brain must simultaneously suppress the true memory, construct a plausible alternative, monitor the listener's reaction, and maintain consistency with previous statements. This mental load creates measurable effects. Speech hesitations increase. Grammatical errors multiply. Response latency varies, sometimes too fast as if rehearsed, sometimes too slow as cognitive resources deplete. Voice pitch elevates measurably under deception-related stress. The laryngeal muscles respond to autonomic nervous system activation. But remember, baseline first, judgment second. A naturally hesitant speaker hesitating tells you nothing. A fluid speaker suddenly stumbling on a specific topic tells you exactly where the stress lies. Signal 3 is asymmetric expression. Paul Ekman's research established that voluntary expressions, those controlled by the motor cortex, display different symmetry patterns than spontaneous emotional expressions processed through the limbic system. Genuine emotions emerge and fade smoothly. Fabricated expressions appear and disappear abruptly. The Duchenne marker separates real smiles from fake ones. Genuine smiles involve the orbicularis oculi muscle around the eyes, creating crow's feet. Fake smiles typically engage only the mouth muscles. This distinction is difficult to voluntarily control. When someone smiles but only one side of the face engages fully, or when the eyes remain uninvolved while the mouth curves upward, you are seeing suppression. This provides better signal about emotional authenticity than eye contact ever could. Signal 4 is pacifying behavior clusters, self-touching, neck rubbing, hair stroking, rhythmic movements. These behaviors indicate stress and cognitive overload. A 2025 University of Houston study found facial self-touching proved a stronger stress indicator than facial expressions during cognitive tasks. The key distinction is that these behaviors signal discomfort, not dishonesty specifically. A truthful person under accusation displays identical pacifying patterns to a liar feeling caught. That is why clusters matter. One face touch could be an itch. A face touch combined with speech hesitation, combined with linguistic distancing, combined with asymmetric expression, that cluster warrants investigation. Now let me show you how to actually use this. Step 1, establish baseline. Before any high-stakes conversation, whether it is a job interview, a negotiation, or a difficult conversation with a partner, Spend the first few minutes on neutral topics. Watch their normal hand positions. Note their typical speech rate. Observe their standard eye contact pattern. This is your control. Everything else is measured against it. Step 2. Introduce stress strategically. When you ask the question that matters, track what changes. You're not looking for nervousness. You're looking for deviation from baseline. A person who was relaxed and fluid suddenly becoming hesitant on one specific topic. That deviation tells you more than any single behavior ever could. Step 3. Look for clusters. Never draw conclusions from one signal. Wait for the constellation. Linguistic distancing alone could be habitual speech pattern. Speech hesitation alone could be processing a complex question. A face touch alone could be an itch. But linguistic distancing plus speech hesitation plus face touching plus asymmetric expression all appearing together when you ask about the expense report or the timeline or where they were that night, that cluster tells you exactly where the deception lives. Step 4. Test, do not accuse. When you identify a hotspot, a moment where signals cluster, you have not proven deception. You have found where to dig. Ask follow-up questions about that specific topic. Request more detail. Approach it from different angles. Liars struggle with consistency because they are constructing rather than remembering. The more detail you request, the more opportunities for their fabrication to contradict itself. This happened in interrogation rooms across the country. It happens in your meetings, your interviews, your relationships. The signals are there. Most people never see them. The read technique, the most widely used interrogation method in American law enforcement, explicitly taught that lack of eye contact indicates deception. This training has been linked to false confessions in over 25% of the 311 DNA exonerations on record. The Central Park 5. 5 teenagers who falsely confessed to a brutal assault they did not commit. The evidence grew damning enough that Wicklander-Zulawski and Associates, one of the world's leading interrogation training companies, stopped teaching the read technique entirely due to false confession risks. Bad science produces bad outcomes, but you do not have to repeat those mistakes. Aldert Vrye's research identified the central paradox. Liars do feel more nervous than truth tellers, but they do not display more nervous behaviors. In some experiments, liars appeared less nervous than truth tellers. The explanation is that liars actively suppress behavioral indicators because they know they are being evaluated. Truth tellers, taking their credibility for granted, do not consciously manage their presentation. The cognitive load required for deception also reduces overall movement. Counter to intuition, mental effort produces stillness rather than nervousness. That is why eye contact, nervousness, and fidgeting fail as detection tools. They rely on a model of lying that does not match how deception actually works in the brain. Most people go through life reading their assumptions. Not people. They see what they expect. They miss what is actually there. Now you know where to look. Baseline first, cluster analysis second, cognitive load third, language and timing over eye contact always. The signals are there, in the words people choose, in the timing of their responses, in the asymmetry of their expressions, in the clusters that appear exactly when stress rises. Most people go through life missing 90% of what is actually being communicated. Now you do not have to. If this sharpened how you see people, subscribe. Human behavior follows patterns. I will show you where to look.